Myself, Dr. Hanuman Prasad. I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, IARE, which is located at Dundigal. The topic that I am going to discuss in today's session is from 4th module titled Gender-Based Violence. And the name of the topic that I am going to discuss is domestic violence. And the contents that I am going to discuss in this topic are introduction to domestic violence, definition of domestic violence in section 3 of IPC, forms of domestic violence, physical abuse, psychological abuse, social abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, and prevention of domestic violence. And finally, references. Let's look at all these contents in detail. First of all, introduction to domestic violence. Domestic violence is the topic that I am going to discuss here, and as a part of introduction, one must know what is domestic violence. Domestic violence is also called intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence. It is defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. So, once again I am repeating, domestic violence is defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. Abuse is either physical or sexual or emotional or economic or psychological actions or threats of actions that influence another person. Okay, and in case of domestic abuse or domestic violence, another person is intimate partner itself. Okay, I hope you understood what is the difference between abuse and domestic abuse or domestic violence. Okay, so domestic violence includes any behaviors that frighten, intimidate, terrorize, manipulate, hurt, humiliate, blame, injure or wound someone. Okay, who is that someone? Intimate partner itself, because we are discussing domestic violence or domestic abuse. So domestic abuse can happen to anyone of any race, of any age, of any sexual orientation, of any religion or of any gender. It can not only be happen to male, it can also be happen to female. Okay, it can be happen to any kind of gender. Even it can be happen to transgender if they are in the family. Okay, so domestic violence can occur within a range of relationships, including couples who are married or living together or dating. Okay, not only life partners but also to those partners who are living together, who are under dating. Okay, so for all of them this domestic violence is applicable. So I hope you understood the introduction part, and let's look at the next content. Definition of domestic violence in section 3 of IPC, Indian Penal Code. Okay, for the purpose of this act, any act, omission or commission or conduct of the respondent shall constitute domestic violence in case it harms or injures or endangers the health, safety, life, limb, or well-being, whether mental or physical, whether mental or physical, of the aggrieved person, or tends to do so and includes causing physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal and emotional abuse, and also economical abuse. Okay, so these are the criteria according to section 3 of IPC to call it as domestic violence. So in case it harasses, harms, injures or endangers the aggrieved person with a view to coerce her or any other person related to her to meet any unlawful demand for any dowry or any property or any valuable security. And it can also be domestic violence in case it has the effect of threatening the aggrieved person related to her by any misconduct, otherwise injures or causes harm, whether physical or mental, to the aggrieved person. Okay, so the cause may be physical or mental to the aggrieved person. So that is what is the definition of domestic violence or criteria to consider it as domestic violence under section 3 of Indian Penal Code IPC. Okay, so one must have awareness on this section 3 of IPC. So when the type of violence is said to be domestic violence. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. Now let's look at the next content. What are the various forms of domestic violence? The various forms of domestic violence include physical abuse, psychological abuse, social abuse, financial abuse, and also sexual abuse. Okay, these 5 are the various important forms of domestic violence: physical abuse, psychological abuse, social abuse, financial abuse, and sexual abuse. Okay, now let's look at each of these forms in detail. Okay, so the first form of domestic violence is physical abuse. What is physical abuse? Is there any name given to physical abuse? And when we call it as physical abuse? Let's look at this content in detail. Physical abuse is also known as physical assault. Physical assault. Physical abuse involves intentional bodily injury, such as slapping or pinching or choking or kicking or shoving. Shoving is nothing but pushing someone or something roughly. Okay, and damaging personal property, use of weapons, burning, and strangulation. Strangulation is nothing but if someone is holding the throat, then what will happen? Their breath will be stopped for a certain time. So there will be a struggle for breath. That condition is called strangulation. That is also the major form of physical abuse or physical violence. Okay, so physical abuse is also known as physical assault, and it involves intentional bodily injury such as slapping, pinching, choking, kicking, shoving, damaging personal property, use of weapons, burning, and strangulation, etc. Okay, these are all come under physical abuse, and physical abuse come under domestic violence. Okay, so I hope you all understood what is physical abuse and what is another name given for it. Okay, another name given for it is physical assault, and when it is considered as physical abuse, if somebody is slapping or pinching or choking or kicking or shoving or damaging the personal property, or using the weapons, burning, or strangulation. Okay. Let's look at the next content. Psychological abuse, which is another form of domestic violence. What is psychological abuse? You know, psychological means it is related to mind. So you can say mental related. Okay. So related to mind is nothing but mental. So psychological abuse is also known as emotional abuse, because to the mind it responds as an emotion. Okay, so that is why psychological abuse is also called emotional abuse. It involves mental or emotional pain. What it involves? Mental or emotional pain, such as intimidation, coercion, ridiculing, harassment, treating an adult like a child means psychologically it is one kind of abuse. Okay, isolating an adult from family, isolating a particular adult from their family, or from friends, or from regular activity. Okay, and use of silence to control behavior. So if you use silence to control one's behavior, that will also come under mental or psychological or emotional abuse. And yelling means shouting loudly, and swearing. Swearing also one kind of shouting only. Okay, so these are all influencing the mental status or emotional status of a particular person who is experiencing this kind of psychological abuse, which is another form of domestic violence. So, what is the another name of psychological abuse, and when the abuse is considered as psychological abuse? These two you have learned in this content. So, it is also called emotional abuse, and when it is considered psychological abuse, in the case of mental or emotional pain causing things such as intimidation, coercion, ridiculing, harassment, treating an adult like a child, isolating an adult from family or from friends or from regular activity, or use of silence to control one's behavior, and yelling, swearing, etc. Okay, I hope you all understood what is psychological abuse and when the abuse is considered as psychological abuse. Okay, now let's look at the next form of domestic violence: social abuse. What is social abuse? Is there any name given to social abuse, or it will come under any kind of previously discussed abuses? Okay. First of all, it is one of the forms of domestic violence. It can be a kind of psychological abuse. Social abuse is a kind of psychological abuse. Not exactly psychological abuse, it is one kind of psychological abuse and one form of domestic violence. Social abuse is a behavior that aims to cut you off from your family or from your friends or from your community. So that is why social abuse is a kind of psychological abuse. Okay? So it is a behavior that aims to cut you off from your family, from your friends, and from your community. Okay? So socially you are isolated. So then it is called social abuse. What in single word? Socially isolating is called social abuse. It involves a person or people trying to damage your relationship with others. What it involves? A person or people who are trying to damage your relationship with others. Okay, means it includes jealousy. Okay, If somebody is maintaining good relationship with others, somebody is socially getting good fame, then they are jealous. Some people surrounding them who are especially bad in understanding, who are especially less matured. Those people will try to damage your relationship with others and try to make you defame in the society. So that is a part of social abuse. Okay, and people who are socially abusive attempt to make you look bad or ruin your reputation. As I said just now, they try to make you look bad. Okay, they make you look bad even though you are looking very good. But so in what they will create a problem, they will create a jealousy kind of thing, and they will create one kind of rumor, and they will spread that rumor throughout, and they will make such person bad, even though he is very very good. Okay, and they try to ruin your reputation. So that is the final aim of that less mature person. And this is considered as social abuse. This is very, 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 very dangerous form of domestic violence. Because in this case, the person cannot go anywhere with his dignity. So he will be out of the society completely in this case. Okay? One must have enough maturity to understand all these things and behave accordingly in the society. And let's look at next content. Financial abuse. Is there any other name for financial abuse? Or what are the kinds of activities that come under financial abuse? That we will discuss in this content. Financial abuse is also known as economic abuse. What is the other name for financial abuse? Economic abuse. And what is financial abuse? It is a behavior that maintains power and control over finances. Financial abuse is a behavior that maintains power and control over finances. It involves causing a partner to lose his or her job through direct and indirect means, such as inflicting physical harm or injury that would prevent the person from attending particular work. Harassing partner at his or her workplace, controlling financial assets, and effectively putting partner on an allowance, like take the LIC in a high amount. So LIC is somewhat okay. Some kind of policies which are not authenticated. So involving the people in those kind of activities and making them financially down. So these kind of activities come under financial abuse or economic abuse. And damaging a partner's credit score will also come under an activity of financial abuse. Okay. So what is another name of financial abuse and what are the activities that includes financial abuse? First thing, it is also called economic abuse, and the activities that involve in this financial abuse are maintaining power and control over finances of others especially. So in case of domestic violence, others will be intimate partners. It involves causing a partner to lose his or her job through direct or indirect means, by physically harming or injuring corresponding person so that he cannot attend the particular work, and as a result he will not get the money or he will not get the payment for such kind of activity, so he will be becoming down economically. So it is a part of financial abuse. And harassing the partner at his or her workplace, controlling financial assets and effectively putting the partner on an allowance, Like as I said, those are not authenticative. So involving in them, in those unauthenticative financially related investments, as a result, they will be financially down and they will become financially abusive. And damaging a partner's credit score knowingly. So these are all come under the activities of financial abuse. Now let's look at another form of domestic violence in the next slide, that is sexual abuse. It is one of the most worst forms of domestic violence. Is there any other name for sexual abuse? And what are the activities that will cover under sexual abuse that we are going to discuss in this content in detail? So, sexual abuse is not about sex. It is about power and includes any sexual behavior performed without a partner's consent. Okay? Any kind of sexual behavior performed without a partner's consent. So this will be the major cause of sexual abuse. Okay? It includes any sexual behavior performed without a partner's consent. If it is with a partner's consent, it is not considered as sexual abuse. If it is without the partner's consent, then only it is considered sexual abuse. It involves forcing a partner to have sex with other people. Human trafficking. Pursuing sexual activity when the victim is not fully conscious or is afraid to say no. Hurting partner physically during sex. Coercing partner to have sex without protection or sabotaging birth control, means destroying birth control, etc. So these are all the activities that come or cover under sexual abuse. Okay. So what you have learned in this form of domestic violence, sexual abuse is not about sex. It is about power and includes sexual behavior performed without partner's consent. It involves forcing a partner to have sex with other people, which is a form of human trafficking. Pursuing sexual activity when the victim is unconscious or afraid to say no. Hurting partner physically during sex. Coercing partner to have sex without protection or sabotaging birth control, means destroying birth control. Okay. So these are all the activities that come or cover under sexual abuse, which is the worst form of domestic violence. Okay. Now let's look at the next content. How to prevent domestic violence, means prevention of domestic violence. Domestic violence of the victims can be prevented by some of the activities that include believing them. So whoever is claiming domestic violence, so I have faced so and so today, I have faced so and so yesterday, I am facing so and so from last 1 week or last 1 month or last couple of months, then you have to believe them. You should not ignore them. So believing is the major concern that you are showing. So then they will get some confidence. Yes. So somebody is believing me, or someone is considering whatever I am feeling is correct. So if you believe them, then they will have the confidence to prevent by themselves. Okay? And listening to them without judgment. So you should not judge immediately. So you have to listen to them patiently without any judgment. And offering support and encouragement. You have to offer always support and you have to always encourage them. Okay? You should never demotivate or you should never discourage them. And helping them to develop a safety plan. How to be in such a scenario. So is one of the prevention method of domestic violence. Linking them to resources that will help them leave their abuser. Okay, linking them to resources. There are many resources which will help them leave their abuser, so that the abuser will afraid, and because of the support of those resources or those majorly those are social related. So once they are exposed socially, somebody is doing this kind of abuse, then he will be treated differently in the society. So he will afraid and he will stop doing that. Okay, and providing awareness on domestic violence acts. This is very very important. One should have awareness on domestic violence acts, or one should educate the family members or friends or community people or surrounding people about the domestic violence acts, because nowadays everyone is facing some form of domestic violence, knowingly or unknowingly, but they are not bringing it to the light. That is only the thing. But I am sure that somebody somehow are facing some form of domestic violence. So everyone must have awareness about domestic violence acts. This includes the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. It is established in the year 2005. So what are the methods of prevention of domestic violence? So you should believe the victims who are facing any form of domestic violence, and you should listen to them without any judgment. And you should offer support and encouragement, and you should help them to develop a safety plan how to avoid such kind of activities, and you should link them to resources that will help them to leave their abuser. And you should provide awareness on domestic violence acts such as the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, which is established in the year 2005. So that is how you can say goodbye to domestic violence. So these are the prevention methods of domestic violence. So what are the various forms of domestic violence and what is domestic violence? Domestic violence is related to home. Intimate partner violence is called domestic violence. What are the various forms? Physical abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, social abuse, and sexual abuse. And how to prevent domestic violence? By believing them, by offering support and encouragement, by giving awareness on domestic violence acts and so on. Okay. So I hope you all understood what is domestic violence and what are the various forms and how to prevent domestic violence. And I followed the following references. Number 1, Gender Studies by Kadambari, and Gender Sensitization by Rajalakshmi Kalyani. And I have followed one website, indiacode.nic.in/bitstream/ Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. Okay. So thank you very much for your kind attention and all the best, everyone.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.